Manchester, England. We have a lot of layers of history here. Beginning, city of industry, modern. So this right here, not quite where the city started. The Brigantes Celtic Tribe was the original settlement over by the Cathedral. The second half of the video was going to be over there, but there's not a lot left from those days. So and not a lot is known about that. It probably goes several thousand years into the BC. It has found little archaeological evidence. But let's talk about this place. So this is where Manicium, a Roman Empire fort, which is down there, recreated that brown building back there. The original wall, though, is kind of original. But out here is one of the outside walls of the fort. So the Roman Empire, and they're taking over Britannia, moving north all throughout the island. They're having all kinds of problems with different peoples like Boudica, different tribes, the Celtics, the Druids. So this tribe around here, the Brigantes, were giving them all kinds of problems. Their nearby cities were modern day Chester and modern day York. So they wanted to build a fort in between the two to kind of hold up shop here. So this was built here by the Legion General Agricola as a base to defend the nearby settlements. The fort grew to a small city, Manicium or Manicium, something like that. And it was inhabited for several hundred years, 300 to 400 AD. So 304 to 400 AD, starting from about 79 AD, you have some defensive pits here and different things going on. Hey, look, there's a train going to the old Roman city and Viking, by the way, city of York, that way. So, the Romans, they were doing the same thing, traveling between here in York and Chester, and little towns sprang up in this area. They had a market, a lot of Roman relics have been found, and starting from here, the city has been continually inhabited from 79 AD until right now, 2020. Roman Britannia had to withdraw around 300s, 400s AD. Problems in the Western Roman Empire, the fall of it basically, and this far-off province kind of got forgot about. The population shrunk in this settlement. A few soldiers, a small garrison manned the fort until about 407, they think, until it was completely abandoned. The town, though, was thought to be repopulated, a few, maybe like 100 people. We're talking a small population. Repopulated, likely by locals, maybe some Vikings, Saxons at some point. Not a lot is known about this time, except for archaeological evidence, but it was likely after the Romans and before Manchester starting, a really small settlement here. But yeah, this is where Roman Manicium started. Alright, so after the Romans retreated, it wasn't until 919 AD that the area was mentioned again, when a local Saxon king rebuilt the Roman fort a little bit to repel Viking Danish raiders. The Vikings had strongholds in both Dublin and in nearby Ireland, right off the coast, and in York, modern day York, which is not too far from here. Yeah, they weren't Saxon, English, nothing. They were Scandinavian rule. There's a lot of Vikings and pagan too. Oh, speaking of pagans, this is the spot I mentioned earlier. Right along here where the first Celtic tribe, the Brigantes, was many years into the BC before the Romans came, 79 AD. Alright, back to about 1000 AD. So as the Normans took over all of England and conquered on their way north, they got to this area. 1086, the village, which was a tiny village right around this spot, is mentioned as Manecester or Manecester, which morphed into Manchester. I could really see how it's likely a mix of the Roman name, which was Mam or Manicium, and also the nearby famous city of the time, Chester. They kind of put the two together, I think, you know, Manchester, the famous city nearby, motorcycle going. Yeah, city filming. All right. So after the Norman conquest of England, the village grew. Manecester. Churches, castle, and other buildings were built. None of those from the 1200s survived. 1222 AD, city had an annual fair that was held here, talked about. Late 1200s, the city began to grow as its roots of the city of industry. Beginning first with the wool and tanneries, which for several decades it was a clothing manufacturing. This started in the 1200s. There were small mills making wool, blankets, clothes, leather. Flemish, which are people from Belgium or half of Belgium, moved into the city. They were working as weavers in the growing textile industries. But still, this was a small place. Nothing like it is today. 1301, the city was given a royal charter, and then we get to this building. 1421, the cathedral was built. Originally, you know, Roman Catholic, of course. Probably upgraded a few times. I believe it was bombed pretty bad. World War II, fixed up. Pretty awesome though, very old. Next year will be its, 600th birthday. Awesome. But still, the city was not very large. 1500s, it started getting a little bit more populous. 1600s, the city became very famous worldwide for its wool and cotton. And also silk was woven in this town that was imported all the way from China, woven into silk products. Globalization, man. 1600s was right when this was starting up, and this part of the world definitely had a piece of that. Though in the 1600s, the city had two plagues in 1603 and 1645, which killed a good portion of the city, at least 25% both times. You know, we're kind of dealing with that kind of thing even today. Sicknesses spreading around with the thing happening in China right now. I hope everyone's healthy. All right, back to the 1600s. The plague hit here twice. But in between the plague, there was a civil war in England, 1642. The city sided with the Parliament, and they had to repel some attacks from the royalist cavalry that was coming in here trying to make it a royal stronghold again. I guess they built like a wooden fence around the whole village. Basically, this area right here was all Manchester. This is the main square. You know, the cathedral probably wasn't as big originally. You know, but with the plague and the wars and stuff happening, people from the countryside were always willing to move into the village and fill the job vacancies from the dead. So the city kept on going. In 1653, a library, which is close by to here, I believe down there, the oldest in the UK with public access, and a school of music was built right in this area. And then next is when the city of industry, as we roll into the Industrial Revolution, those cotton and mills, textile industries get a big boost from industrialization and coal power, steam, and new inventions. But next, we'll get into that. All right, so industry was on its way here, but it hadn't quite hit yet. We're at this town hall of Manchester. Let's get into the modern history. So the early 1700s, the textile and cotton industries and mills, processing things began booming. This is when this population got much bigger and became the city as we see it today. It was nicknamed Cottonopolis because it processed the most cotton in the world. Tons of factories, all lined in this area back there along the river. Around 1750, the Industrial Revolution basically started here. in this city. 1761, a canal was built to ship coal to all the coal-fired plants that are making all kinds of items, cotton gins and presses. I don't know the specifics of this kind of thing, but yes, the Industrial Revolution started here, mostly in the textile industry, what they're famous for here. It started with machines for textiles, but expanded into general manufacture of goods and chemicals, which propped up banking and insurance, and what propped up a lot of this stuff as we see today being built, late 1700s. It was the first and most industrialized city in the world, Manchester. So by 1800, the city was transformed, kind of how we see today, from a smaller town. Many Irish, Scotch, and Welsh moved in. The population boomed further to work in these new factories. And unplanned urbanization just kind of continued. The city just kind of kept growing. It wasn't planned. It was kind of so quick, you know, the industry was booming. So this, unfortunately, a lot of wealth leads up to a lot of disparity at times. There were some really bad slums, a lot of nasty conditions people were living in. There was a lot of social unrest, a few riots, like bread shortages, different things like that. One really bad one in 1819 was a huge riot. Tens of thousands of people gathered to protest inequality, basically. And 11 were killed, 600 people were injured by sword when local magistrates had 15 men on horseback to disperse the crowd. And it got crazy. They just started swinging their swords. Pretty nuts. And also, this new industrialized city was filled with smoke from endless chimneys and factories. Just imagine this whole cityscape filled with smoke and smog, man. That's intense. I'm sure that the Irwell River and canal were very highly polluted. But, you know, this was the beginning of all that kind of stuff. So 1816, though, there was a lot of positives too. Fresh water was piped in iron pipes throughout the city. 1820s, gas lights appeared. Probably around this area. Look, there's some old lights over there. The canal, the first ever intercity railway in the world, was built to Liverpool, mostly shipping all the products that are made here to Liverpool for boats for international distribution. Globalization, big part of it had to do with this place. 1894, a larger canal, a shipping canal, was built, basically making Manchester an inland port. New ideas, new machines, new wealth. Many of the buildings seen today are built during the late 1800s, middle to late 1800s, like Town Hall here, whole cityscape, from that newfound wealth from the Industrial Revolution started. After 1850, though, as industrialization spread around the world, that meant more competition in several other places for different things like cotton, and it led in the decline of the industry here. With some diversification, but it got into some other things like food processing. But, you know, as soon as the world caught on, everyone started building factories, and capitalism spread like crazy. Kind of crazy that all that stuff started right here. So I rarely get into such economic things and industry stuff in my videos, but since this is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, why not? Although by the 1930s, depression hit pretty bad here. A lot of factories closed down and stuff like that. World War II revitalized that industry a little bit for war. Machines, planes, and stuff, probably like that. And next is the going up to the modern age. Alright, so World War II, the city, because of its war manufacturing, was targeted by the Nazis during the Blitz, which destroyed a lot of the historic city center. Close to here, hundreds of buildings damaged. A really bad one called the Christmas Blitz, December 22nd to 24th, 1940 was extra bad. 376 people killed. There's hundreds of buildings and factories and warehouses wiped out at once. One bombing raid. Pretty crazy. Manchester was targeted for that reason because of its industrial capabilities by Nazi airplanes. After the war, the area was rebuilt over the decades. Some warehouses and mills were converted to apartments and other buildings. Now it's mostly service industry and shopping, education, a lot different than its industrial past here. Side note, bombings are unfortunately synonymous with Manchester. The IRA from Ireland had a history of bombings in the city, 1867, 1920, 1939, 1992, and a very large one that luckily didn't kill anybody in 1996, but injured 500 people, destroyed a lot of the central city. There's a mall there now. And then in 2017, very recently, ISIS linked possibly bombing an Ariana Grande concert. Rest in peace, man. It's terrible violence happening here. But let's finish this on a lighter note. Service industry, shopping, and education now thrive, and it's known as officially the second city in the United Kingdom. Disputed with Birmingham. Oh, those choppers. So now it's a very multicultural city. The Chinatown is right down the block. Actually, they're celebrating Chinese New Year today. That was built in 1970, and on the city streets, you do not just see Brits, but people from all over the world, all around Manchester. From all corners of the globe, I would say people live here. Very, very interesting. Also, Manchester is home to two of the most famous soccer teams in the world, Manchester City and Manchester United. It's a heated rivalry between the two. Two of the most popular sports franchises in the world. Pretty cool. They love their soccer up here. And yeah, that's the history of Manchester. Perfect Manchester drizzly day, City Hall.